I'm Gaz, and this is Let's Play Tomb Raider: The Prophecy. This is a Game Boy Advance game, and compared to the other Tomb Raiders that came out for Game Boy, I think this is pretty good. Real magic. These words resound in Lara's head as she contemplates the mighty Swedish mountains above her. Magic means supernatural, great power. It existed as many legends of different cultures and ages describe it. As soon as Lara started deciphering the forgotten Tome of Ezekiel, written by a mysterious medieval scholar, she immediately found herself knee-deep in the legend. And so she's here, looking for the black stone which lies somewhere in the icy heart of what was called Wolf's Fang Peak by the 13th century scholar. She's looking for the stone that will reveal what magic was, or still is. So at the beginning of the game here, it sort of gives you a little bit of a hint as to where you should be going. Kind of holds your hand, but first we actually want to go along this ledge because there is a secret here right at the very start of the game. Get ourselves a free med pack. So as you can see, this is a top-down puzzle platformer. And like I said, compared to the other Game Boy games with the Tomb Raider title, I think it's pretty decent. For one thing, it's simple, and it is a little bit easy, but I like simplicity in games like this. At least, when I talk about simplicity, I mean more the game mechanics. It doesn't take a lot to learn this game. Jump the gap there with a little bit of a false start. Okay. So the hand-holding does stop after a while, after the first couple levels, which are really more just tutorial levels than anything else. And now the game starts for real. One thing about this game, though, and you'll probably see this very quickly, is that it is rather slow, which makes commentating on it rather difficult, or at least very boring. Although, for me, that's not really, that's sort of par for the course. That's not really a big deal. I assume you don't watch me very much for the commentary. That said, though, I am actually doing post-commentary throughout this series for several reasons. Primarily because of the emulator I'm using to play this game and its inability to have a very reasonable volume level. And here is our first enemy. Our first chance to get to use the guns. And one thing I really like about this game is that it has auto-tracking. If you get close enough to an enemy, Lara automatically points towards it and you can shoot, so you don't have to worry about some convoluted... Make sure I'm going the right way. You don't have to worry about some convoluted targeting system where you got to get the crosshairs right on. So that makes it really nice, especially when you're using Game Boy Advance controls, because the Game Boy Advance didn't have very many buttons. It was actually quite similar to the original Nintendo in that respect. And here we have our hands held, showing us how to get down from a ledge. And it's actually kind of tricky to do the ledge crawling because you can get right up to the edge there and sometimes the little prompt for getting down will not show up, so you can accidentally fall off the edge, and there is fall damage in this game. So you have to gauge how far you jump down and make sure that you don't kill yourself. Now this is actually pretty typical of this game. You've got these surprise enemies that just sort of come out of nowhere, and it doesn't help that the music changes abruptly when they come, because it's very startling when they do that. It's not really such a big deal, with the wolves, but later enemies that just sort of pop up can be a little bit disconcerting, just because you have to think about how you're going to get out of the way, especially when they are like on ledges or around corners that you need to get through, because then it's not just fighting the enemies and using the various techniques that get some of them, but you also have to make sure you don't fall to your death while you're doing it. Now this Uzi ammo that I'm picking up, I cannot actually use until much later in the game, when I get the Uzi guns. And I guess that's actually sort of a thing for the Tomb Raider games. You sort of get things that you will be using later, but it is a little bit disappointing, because I end up picking up a lot of the ammo, and I just can't use it when I want to. But until the second area, which is Cambodia, there's not really a heavy emphasis on fighting, and I say that as I shoot another wolf. But the Swedish mountains here, this area is really more about puzzling. And the enemies are still relatively easy enough that you can get away with the pistols. But later on, you get more than one enemy at a time, and so it becomes really important to have weaponry that can kill them all in a timely fashion, because it's really difficult to stay out of the way with just the pistols, because you basically have to back up, like doing here, and you know, try to avoid the damage. Well, when you're surrounded in a tight corridor, you can't do that very easily. I'm not really sure what the purpose of that is. It gives me a hint on how to use a ledge when I've just used one to get to that position. I mean, I don't really think I need to have my hand held to show me how to get across there, but whatever. You definitely don't want to jump off that. I think that's high enough that it will kill Lara. I think this level also showcases one of the mechanics of the game, which is that the exit will be surrounded by layers of puzzles, meaning that there will be like 2 or 3 doors and a trap you have to disarm before you can walk through it, and the switches for those are all over the place. Can't go down that corridor at all. The flames won't kill you right away, but you do take a lot of damage just by standing in them. And so while I could try and run through those, probably wouldn't make it very far. This is an area you definitely have to sprint jump across. And there are several areas in the game where sprint jumping is necessary, but especially on ledges, when you're jumping from one little ledge to the next, you can actually overshoot and just fall off. That little guy's sneaking around the corner there. And the sprinting mechanic in general, I think, is... Now this is a dirty trick, having this guy right there, right up top, so you can't prepare. Yeah, the sprinting mechanic, I think, is really short, because you can sprint for about a second, and it takes like 2 or 3 before it will recharge again. So it's definitely not a mainstay thing that you use all the time, which is really unfortunate because Lara runs kind of slowly normally. It's actually kind of funny because the animation for her looks like she should be moving a bit faster than she normally does. It actually kind of reminds me of some dreams I've had where I just run and run and run and I can't move as fast as I should. But that looks like this area done. I think I'm going to try and keep these segments short, so I'm going to end this one here, and I'll see you next time.